Mic check, 1, 2. Keith Pelzer here. Welcome to another edition of Between Sundays. Here I am, right here in front. I am going to decrease while the table increases. Today, continuing the red flags, we do have at the table a very special guest. If you were watching when I took this screen from that last screen to here, you seen somebody at the table that I'm so glad to have in the room. The one, the only. I'm going to let Darian and Jay announce who is at the table. But we have wisdom in the room. So out of all the chit-chatting that us young boys have done, I'm older than them two young boys, but I'm like a medium young boy. We got OG at the table. But this OG is not your regular OG. This is a person packed with wisdom, knowledge, and experience. Enjoy the conversation between Sundays. And now, one of the best keyboard players that carries a bunch of keys with him, that bowls a 300 with a bunch of keys on his side, none other than the one and only Darian Brister.
All right, guys. Welcome back. We missed you all last week, but welcome back. Between Sundays. There you go. Between Sundays, episode 10. Again, we're a platform that offers perspectives of modern church ministry operation and the many nuances therein from the lens of worship arts media worship arts and multimedia personnel. I think I got myself together now. So listen, before I introduced our guest, the last time we were on 2 weeks ago, one of our first topics was surrounding female musicians and the younger female musicians. So I would like to take just a minute or two just to run down and shout out a list of the female musicians that I have had the pleasure of coming across and working with in the tri-state area. All right. Now, chat, feel free to throw in any names that I may miss, JU as well. But let me start with Overseer Arlene Mills, Tamika Furby.
Yes.
Trina Furby.
Yes.
Minister Tiffany Blaine Dingle. Pastor now, Charnel Blaine, Marie Purnell, God rest her soul, Dr. Becky Carlton, as was mentioned 2 weeks ago, Apostle Lenora Young, Dr. Carol Antrim, Dr. Valerie Gay, Sabrina Banks, Nicole Hale, awesome drummer, singer, praise and worship leader, Janae Booker, Lael Jones, Victoria Winder, Dr. Sarah Carter Blandford, Fatima Burke, Tawana Simons, Tania McClellan, Arnetta Johnson, one of the baddest horns players in the tri-state area, Erica Mack, Kenya Collier, Sonny D, Vicky Caldwell Fordham. So again, I just wanted to shout those again who I've had the pleasure of meeting and or working with that are awesome musicians that just happen to be females. So now, let me poke my chest out a little bit as I introduced our guest today. He is a board member for the National Baptist Sunday School Publishing Board. He is also the first vice president of the Baptist Pastors and Ministers Conference of Philadelphia and vicinity. He is pastor, but his favorite title, Pop. Let me welcome all my pop, Pastor Paul Lee.
Good afternoon.
Good to have you here, man.
It's good to be here. Place where I've loathed to be. I wanted to be here, and it is a blessing to be with these two brilliant musicians. Brilliant.
Thank
And
you,
of
sir.
course, that's not excluding the one who's running the show.
No, it's not. No, it is not.
I ain't running nothing.
So, let me start here, if you don't mind, Pastor Lee. I want to get your take on two specific topics before we get into our agenda. Based on your journey, in ministry, obviously as a pastor and in various, ministry capacities, what is some things that you may or you would want to say to the younger pastors, advice you may give them as they are embarking on the journey of pastoring, particularly in the modern church of today?
That's a very, very good question.
Darian can hit you with it, can he?
Oh,
Yeah, he hit you with it, right? He just start off early hitting you with it.
So, advice, insight, experience, and by way of just paying attention to what was important to the master teacher, Jesus himself, the very first thing that you see him doing before making any critical decisions was getting to the mountain. When he got ready to make selections, when he got ready to do something significant, you can always find prior to that him being in the mountain in prayer.
Yeah.
And so my first encouragement to any young preacher, you've got to have a prayer life. You've got to be in contact with the person whom you say called you, that gives the directions, that gives instructions, who lays out the plan, who's actually said, now this is the terrain that you have to travel.
Yeah.
And it's going to be uneven, it's going to be shaky, it's going to be hilly, but at least you have an opportunity to get directions.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And so before he even selected the 12 that were with him, he spent time with the Father, and the Father approved of his list.
Wow.
Mm.
That's good.
Yes, sir. One more question, if you don't mind, and then we're going to hit our agenda for the day. And this question would be for us, for the musical segment, or the musical population, the musicians, the musical creatives, even those that may be in the multimedia side. What would you say are some important things to consider as a musical, let's say, professional that is looking to invest themselves into a church ministry?
That's, again, a good question. Probably, for me, from years of experience, faults, failures, errors, and all of that, and then making selections of musicians, flawed as they were, and I'm not talking about the musician, my decisions were flawed.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the process, I think that if a musician is looking to invest themselves, they need to be vested in the person who calls. They need, that's just, to me, until you are vested in that, you're just a participant in probably one of the most influential, transformative, powerful experiences in life. So you become a sideline person who interjects every now and then, who's involved every now and then, who has opportunity every now and then, until you become vested in purpose and and knowing the plan that's laid out. You're gonna miss it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you, man. So we're going to get into our agenda. Now, I probably disappointed some people, particularly in the music community. Some people may have thought the line of questioning was going to be, well, why do y'all pastors always do this and think this? I'm sorry, you tuned into the wrong channel.
Not here to bash.
That's not what we do here.
No.
So we have a conversation, and we like to hear and get perspectives, of those that operate in ministry in various areas, even if it's not necessarily our own. Because again, our goal was strengthening the conversation that all areas come to a better understanding of each other. All right. So jumping into where we're starting today, as always, we start with some comments that we missed from previous episodes. So here's where we're starting. We're starting with two comments that's we're going to intertwine into one. Jay, I want to start with you.
Yep.
Okay. So first comment was from Mark Gray. Mark Gray's comment was, "What happened to homegrown musicians?" What happened to homegrown musicians? And then the second comment that I believe intertwines with this comment was from Rob Speaks. His comment was, "For those who want to be mentored, particularly musicians, how does one find a competent, knowledgeable mentor? When we were coming up, we had to just look over people's shoulders and hope to remember what we saw by the time we got home and practice." So Jay, I want to start with you. You can hit any one of those first that you like, but your thoughts behind those, because I think those two questions are very related to each other.
I agree. So let me start here. I'll explain what happened. What happened, honestly, is simple. Money. That's what happened.
Ouch.
There was a time, all of us, most of us, let me say that because I don't want to put everybody in the box. Most of us organists / pianists have started as a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that. But then we knew, whether we wanted to know or not, that somewhere we had an urge to play the organ or the keyboard some type of way.
Yeah.
And we started practicing. That's our story.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have that young person, and I'm not bashing. We're not here to bash. I'm just giving you what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the young guy that's on the drums as well. And he's looking at you. Now, he loves to play the drums. However, there comes a point in time where he realizes, I make a little bit more money playing this instrument.
Yeah.
So what does he do? As bad as he is on the drums, he gets off the drums.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just start tinkering and tinkering.
Yeah.
And you being musician A, I'm going to call you musician A,
Mm-hmm.
says to musician B, which is the drummer, okay, I can mentor you and train you what to do. And what happens is, as time goes on,
Mm-hmm.
musician A is trying to train, but then musician B is like, well, I actually sound pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the lack of, because of the demand of musicians
Mm-hmm.
in these churches, especially small ones, the small church can't afford a musician A because he's about $500-$600.
Yeah.
But they can afford musician B.
Mm-hmm.
So even though musician B now can only play in 2 keys, guess what? They gave him 125 reasons to leave that church.
Yeah.
And now he's over the music ministry in a whole nother church that he's not even equipped.
Mm-hmm.
He never learned any foundation. But at that point, it doesn't matter. You're now getting paid.
Wow.
So now you're playing an instrument. Let's just say the organ.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing an instrument that you have never got foundation on.
Yeah.
How many situations do we know that? You're playing an instrument where you never sat long enough
Mm-hmm.
for musician A to tell you, hey, listen, there is a science to the drawbars.
Yeah.
Listen, there's a science to that Leslie switch. Stop switching it every 2 seconds. You don't even know how to use it. Oh, come on.
Wait a minute. You're damaging it.
You're damaging. You don't even realize it. All you saw was what me and this other musician did. So you think, inexperienced, you think that all you're supposed to do is just play one hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's all you hear. You don't even use like. Now, you didn't even stay long enough. I'll go deeper. You didn't stay long enough to understand that on the Hammond organ, the right foot pedal is not the volume.
Yeah, you just messed up a lot of people's thinking there. So the pedal that goes like this,
that is
you're saying that's not the volume?
That is not the volume pedal.
Okay, but Jay, when you do this, it sounds like the organ got louder.
It sounds.
Can you explain?
Yes. It's called an expression pedal, and what it does is, if you ever listen to an organist that do know how to use it, it's for certain expressions of chord structures or certain expressions of an expression of the organist. If you want to know where the volume button is, it's very clear on the Hammond organ. If you look to your left side,
top left corner,
there's a button there that says volume, normal, soft.
Yeah.
So you
particularly on the B models,
right? So what I'm saying is, we have certain cats that had opportunities to sit. Like it wasn't like me and you.
Yeah.
We sat on because we started to really love it.
Yeah.
And it became an honor.
Yeah.
To sit with these giants.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the money.
So I want to stay in the constructs of your thought. I'm not even going to go into my thoughts. I want to stay in the constructs of your thought. I want to make a statement. And then Pastor Lee, I want you to, I guess, just give some feedback based on what you're hearing. Okay?
Okay.
I think what gets missed in what you just said, or what people draw out of it, you said it was, money is what changed things. Someone even wrote, you start getting checks. And that's absolutely right. Who's writing the checks? But that's the part that gets skipped over.
That's the part. You're right.
Because
you're right.
The demand is what is meeting the reason that you just brought up.
Yep.
If there was a standard, a higher standard of getting a check, like for many of us it was in our generation, then we would have very little places to run for money. Now, I say that as someone who made that mistake. Let me be clear on that. I say that as someone who made that mistake, who, was exposed to a little hint of a check and went right after it.
Right.
Went right after it. So it's part and parcel for me. I was out of order. At the same time, there's culpability for the check writers.
Yep.
Pastor Lee.
Pastor, can I just, before you go in, let me just say something just to that. So what you said, man, was I can't even it was amazing. We have to also realize that it hurts the youth that are coming up behind us, Pastor.
Yep.
Doesn't it hurt?
Yeah.
Because now the hunger is lost. So nobody cares. The
hunger for the craft is lost.
You said it best on our first episode, where you said the church is the only organization where you can be in a managerial position without any resume, without any experience.
Yeah.
And we'll put you right over the music ministry without any type of experience whatsoever. You don't need any other job. You need a resume to a certain degree
Absolutely.
to be in a managerial position.
Absolutely.
But we don't care. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pastor.
Well, two things that I'm hearing, and I want to interject from the beginning. You use the expression pedal on the organ, and so I want to use that as something to see and to hear what I'm saying. Sometimes the young musician then sees that you're doing as keeping him from expressing what he has in himself.
Wow.
You're keeping him from pressing the pedal
Yeah.
and getting better, when in reality, it's just swelling the sound that has not the quality that brings worship to the level that it should be.
Yeah.
I also hear the fact that individuals who are writing the checks, people who are really after getting them, all they want is somebody, for lack of a better term, this is again not bashing anybody. All they want is some noise in that corner.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
let's get somebody over there.
Let's get something going.
And if we get somebody over there, we'll let him grow up on his own. And what happens in the process, they lose sight of development, because that's not development. That's damaging that person's growth.
Yes, sir.
That damages them more than anything else, because now their minds are, I'm better than what I really have been.
And we feed that.
And we feed it.
Pelzer.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, I want to ask you particularly that first question: what happened to homegrown musicians?
You got Pop here at the table. You don't even need me to talk. What happened to homegrown musicians? For me, I would say time has changed. And because time has changed, we get that old hymn, time is filled with swift transition. We sing it, but we don't pay attention to sometimes the actual meaning of what we're singing.
Yeah.
And it does apply today. So swift transition is the culture of our congregations have changed. So a lot of times, and this is just my viewpoint, I grew up around a church where you didn't really know if people were broke or if they were just in fellowship. Meaning that they wasn't in a rush to go home because there wasn't no heat at home. Wasn't in a rush to go home because there wasn't no food. So you had people that wasn't in the service that would stay all day because they can get a good meal on Sunday.
Yeah.
Or you got to stay there and grandma ain't gonna give you no money unless you stay in church all day. And some of us musicians is raised out of grandma wasn't gonna give you no money unless you came to church all day. And while you was there, the little rhythm in you started picking up something. You went from the drums, either you fell off from there, and as Jay said, or you jumped on the keys because you banged on them and you realized banging on them, you got a gift in you and you start developing it. Then you're only in church because you know how to play. Right? Not because you saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost. It's something to do where in the world there was no space because you didn't know how to be a DJ putting pennies on the Two Guys record label, needle.
Yeah.
So you couldn't do that. You wasn't this gangster in the street, so you needed a place, and church was the place to homegrown you.
Yeah.
Then when you got grown in there, then people get a little narcissistic and forget where they came from.
Yeah.
So then they wrestle with, I'm only here to show a little bit of loyalty, but I'm not really in it. And then they don't develop. But those who God really touched, they start getting in and they want to serve more. You're there and you're developing as you're serving. Now, here's the problem. We went from Christian evangelism. We went from building the soul to satisfying the flesh.
Yeah.
Satisfying the flesh, we don't really have pews anymore. We have concert seats.
Yeah.
And when you start to do that, then there's a demand on the music entertainment part. Not a pull in and a demand within myself to serve. It's how can I get from it? Now, people don't get upset. I'm not knocking the payment, right? But the process is screwed up.
Yeah.
Because there's a point subliminally what I do that there's a serve that you have to do in order to make it. Right? There's people now, I'm gonna give y'all a little hint. This is the Pelzer thing. I'm gonna get off the camera. Here's a hint.
Yeah.
If you want to be a photographer, don't take and buy a camera, spend $2,000 on the camera, and then say, this is how much I charge.
Yeah.
If you don't have any element of serving to hone your skills. So for the musician, you learn how to play 3 keys, as Jay Willis said, off of YouTube being your teacher. And then you say, I learned these. I serve to learn these so I can charge you, rather than learn it, find somewhere to serve, hone your skills, and then be asked to serve, that you're going to get paid for your hire.
Yeah.
If you don't have any place of serving, you don't have any place of honing and developing your skills. The Allen Iverson story I tell people all the time. When we played ball with this guy down off of Broad Street, we realized that his homies where he came from actually are better than him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave that right there. So what happened to homegrown musicians? There's no place of actual cultural serving that's not about the money, and we give it all we got just to serve one another.
Exactly.
Now, let me say this. And I'm gonna give very abbreviated answers to both questions, because to the first question of what happened to homegrown musicians, I echo every point that Pelzer made. I also have to add something that's going to sting.
Go on, sir. Come on.
Something else that happened to homegrown musicians is there's an abuse that took place that we don't want to talk about.
Wow.
There's an abuse of, because this is the church you grew up in, there's an abuse that took place in many settings.
Yes. Yes.
Is this commercial break?
So if we're adding some answers and some perspective to that, that's something that unfortunately cannot be left out.
Can I add something?
Let
Absolutely,
him go.
sir.
Let him go.
This points toward the entire focus of the purpose of the church and what we ought to be doing in developing people to serve. When you understand, and I appreciate your answer, Keith, the problem in our churches is we invite people to share in something that they have no desire to serve in.
Oh my gosh.
Say it again.
Wow.
Say it one more time.
So, yeah, we invite people to share in something they have no desire to serve in. And so as a result, it's not a servant mentality. It's I got to show you mentality so that you can appreciate who I believe I am, what I have brought to the table.
Yeah, that's it right
You
there.
know, and it really undermines the whole discipleship process. We got to remember, while at the same time there is business as it relates to the church, we've got to also remember there's responsibility to the kingdom.
Yes, sir.
And so we have to make a choice. Are we going to capitalize the letters that say business, or are we going to capitalize the letters that says discipleship?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this broadcast to let that marinate.
Yeah.
So before we move to our last comment, I want to shout out some watchers. Eli Robeson, Lady Dale Sharp Lee, Bishop Hayward Hamilton, Jay Wills,
I see you, Hayward.
Shirley Gilchrist, Mocha Love, Simone Culver, and Claire Brown, Karen Corley, Bishop Stephen Avenger Sr., Cheryl Hurley, Mrs. Brister, Elizabeth Shingler, Pastor Antonio McAllister, Kevin Curtis, John Turner, William Cofield, Jamise Walker, Aaron Jackson, Charles Cannon Sr. Thank you all for tuning in. Janetta Hines is back with us. Richard D. Sanders, Tracy Fuller, Vanessa Griffin, Josiah Booker, Frida Saunders, Maria Bracy. Again, thank you all for tuning in. Draymond Ringo, Arlene Upchurch, James McCleary. Marquise Shaw Cotman, Yolanda Neely Butler, Claudette McFadden Corbett, Pastor Daniel Jackson. Next comment.
Let me real quick.
Yes, sir.
I like to always shout out the preachers in here and to all the pastors and preachers. We recognize you. I'm also a musician, and so y'all get where I'm on both sides of this. My brother and friend, Pastor Hayward Hamilton, right? I'm going to say this, and I'm using him as an example. If you know him and his son, you can guarantee that if you were to serve this man, you would be an expert in shouting music, right? Mm-hmm. And tuning. Now, I'm saying this in general for all preachers. The culture, and when people were asking what has changed, there was a time when my late father, Reverend Isaac Pelzer Jr., if Pastor Lee needed me, he would just call my dad and say, I need your son because I'm preaching a revival. Can he come down? Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to go. I'm not asking how much. No. I'm not asking, what you going to pay me? What you go and you play, right? Because you serving dad, you serving Uncle so-and-so, you serving, and it's people in the place that's like, oh, I need that kid too. Yeah. Here, and then they'll just hand you some money or something, or not. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You're serving and you're happy to serve. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, I'm working a job, so I got money. Mm-hmm. So I'm there to serve. I said all this to say this, and I'm bringing up Hayward. If I needed something to do, I'm going to be wherever he's preaching at. And anytime he gets up, he's going to say, that's my musician. Yeah. So as he goes into doors that I can't get into, I get a seat. Y'all feel where I'm going at?
Yes, sir.
You get a seat where other musicians is like, I'm better than him. I'm better than her. You might be, but I'm in the seat because I'm serving him or her.
Yeah.
This is where people are messing up at, that a lot of times the seat you can't get in, you can get into it by serving somebody.
There you go.
I just wanted to point that in there.
Yes,
and
sir.
Your skill set is because you were there. The reason why most musicians can't play hymns now is because churches are empty because they can't pay somebody that knows how to play them. Mm-hmm. But where are the people that says they sing hymns all the time and nobody's playing it? Let me go there. Yeah. And hone my craft. Let me Zarephath this thing and kind of get my craft set in so that I can grow. And then the places that's going to pay me, they're going to pay me because I'm more skilled than the other person that has no serve connection to them.
Yeah.
Darian?
Thank you, Pels.
Yep.
No problem.
Go ahead.
All right. Our last comment from previous episode, and this was from a good friend of the show, Dave Bell. All right. Comment was, could it be that the thought of get a real job, which was a segment we ended with 2 weeks ago, could it be that the thought of get a real job could mean get some benefits, a retirement plan, some medical, extra pay? I'm just saying that guys are lucky enough in this area to get $400 to $500 a Sunday, still feel like they need more. Let me tackle this first. I'm going to be brief. I'm passing it to you, Jack.
Okay.
And I'm going to start with the back end. With the, guys are lucky enough in this area to get $400 to $500 a Sunday, still feel like they need more. They shouldn't feel like they need more. They do need more.
Right.
Let's start there.
Right.
They shouldn't feel like it. Mm-hmm. They do need more. Now, I don't really take issue with this position. I would say be careful. The reason I would say be careful is because, like many other professionals that may not work 9 to 5, your plumber, your electrician, your business owner, they also have to find these things.
Yeah.
They also have to find their own benefits, their own retirement plan, their own medical. But we don't tell them. We don't use that tone with them.
Right.
Get a real job. So again, I would say let's be careful that we're consistent. Mm-hmm. I don't disagree again with the sentiment as long as we're consistent with it.
Yeah.
But that's not been many of our experience. Mm-hmm. It's not been our experience that is something that's consistently heard or directed towards someone that's not a musician. Or even in some cases, a pastor.
Wow.
maybe more cases than I know. Your thoughts, Jay?
You know, it's funny. My grandfather used to say that to me. Get a real job. And what it, so for those that are saying, oh, well, that's not too bad, somebody saying that to y'all, think about it like this. If somebody says to your wife, you need to get a real man. Oh, it comes into perspective when we put it that way.
Yeah.
Now it seems disrespectful. But when it's said about a musician, well, you need to get a real job. Oh, well, that's not too bad. We don't look at it as a disrespect to, wow, like you really don't think as that much about what I do. So when my grandfather used to say that, I used to be like, wow, like I see how much you actually believe that this could work out. And it did. But at the time, in the 80s and 90s, $50 was a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you got $100 from a church, that was a blessing.
Yeah.
There wasn't no real money in what we do.
At least not common.
At least not common, right. So now you have, let's just use that $400 or $500 a week. Well, first of all, you're only getting half if the tax man come in and get you.
Mm-hmm.
I know that.
So now you're at what, $250?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you do need insurance. How much more are you really bringing home after insurance and taxes?
Yeah.
Not much. So when you think of, oh, well, you know, you get paid $500. No. When you think of everything that's coming out and don't have no family, it better just be you in an apartment somewhere.
You and
know,
a cat, right?
You and a cat. You got a dog or something. Because at the end of the day, yeah, well, we paying you $500 a week. Okay. But after everything that comes out and everything you got, you're actually taking home gas money, if that, out of that.
Yeah.
As a real job.
Before you go, Bells, I'm coming your way. I just want to reinforce, if you were not on last week when we talked more about this, let me reinforce something. Let me reinforce that the rub here is the word real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the rub.
That is.
If we were talking, you know, get an extra job, that would not be offensive.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
At all.
Exactly.
And many of us who have learned better, we have gotten an extra job. Now, that's not always in the form of a 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we diversify what we do well musically.
Right.
But we don't. So I want to make sure we reestablish that it's not a, you know, we're coming against this because, you know, every musician should be able to live off of what the church can pay them. No, that's not what we're saying. What we're advocating is a specific respect factor,
Right.
as a profession, and particularly as a professional for those of us who have put in the time and work.
Right.
That's what we're advocating for. Pels.
See, I like what your wife just said. Shout out to E9.
Yes.
And Mom, like she said, the rub, Darren, you put it so great. The rub is the word real. I remember, you know, serving every Sunday, and, you know, Deacon Astor finally was like, yo, wait, we went to so-and-so church and they pay their musician $250 a Sunday. They like, we give Keith $50. And they like, Keith plays circles around this guy. And I'm like, you know, it didn't really matter to me because I had, and this is where it gets offensive, a real job to some people, but to me, I just had a job.
Yeah.
Right.
Because according, and I'm going to toss this back over since we got Pop at the table. I'm getting off the camera and let him talk right with the wisdom. But I'm going to just drop this in here and reset this tone here, how he said discipleship. I think if you seek first the kingdom and the righteousness, all these things will be added unto you. For me, my playing was a seeking first, because the playing in church is technically ministry and it's a part of discipleship. It's kind of like the early part of Acts where everybody brought what they had to the table, right? And then there's a sense of, hey, here's service on Sunday, but if you need me during the week and you need me to fix the organ, I need some money to come down the highway. But if we're all here gathering at the same place at the same time, and you can do this, you can do that, you can do that, how much work is it just to play the same song over and over and over and over? Now, once we start to go to entertainment, then it's more so of looking like my everyday, I don't want to say real, but my everyday job that requires me to specifically do this, that, and the third. And now the musician nowadays, shout out to all of y'all, y'all got click tracks, y'all got to set up stems, y'all got to do this, y'all got to get order, you got to make sure that folks showing up on time and stuff. I didn't have to do that. It's like, yo, grandma, I'm gonna whip Tim behind if he ain't sitting on the drums in the morning. Today is called Jay. Check with your guys. Well, now he's doing management, so that's what you paying him for. So once we start to draw away from that serve, and if nobody in that department has a servant mentality, then everybody's hired, and now you subject yourself to the consequences of corporate business.
There you go. Pastor Lee.
Listen, here is where for us as pastors and the collective congregational leaders have to recognize that this is not about church on Sunday. We have limited our understanding of what God has given us to build. He said, upon this rock, I'll build my church. That church context is understanding that here is, if you want to use the business terminology, here is an entity that is meant to build lives, not just spiritually, but financially, socially, all of those areas. What has happened is we have limited what the church is supposed to be doing because we missed what Jesus said when he said, seek first the kingdom, scripture that Keith just used, seek first the kingdom. Or am I seeking something that is my passion as opposed to something that is the heart of God? If you're seeking something that's the heart of God, then it can be built, it can be developed, and it can become a viable, I don't want to use the word institution, it can become a viable movement.
An organism.
Organism, that's what the church is. That changes lives, that changes people's economic status, that changes people's spiritual perspective, changes family orientation, changes all of that.
Yes, sir.
And it's understanding that the investment has to be in that. So we have to sit down and plan, what are we going to do? What is it that is our goal just to meet every Sunday? Or is our goal to meet the demands that Jesus laid out that impacted not only where he grew up, but everywhere he set his feet, and understanding that everywhere he went, he changed lives, he impacted people. And so it added to the kingdom, so much so that when you read Luke, the 8th chapter, and understand the folk that joined in the movement while the disciples were with Jesus, there were key women and those who were delivered from demons and everything else, and those who had husbands in key positions who took their substance and supported the ministry so that it could be adequate enough to meet the needs of those who were doing ministry. And that was Jesus and the disciples. Now, I want to say this, and I'm going to leave it alone. Here is where the disciples needed to understand, as long as you're with Jesus, you're going to get taken care of.
This commercial break was brought to you by Townsend's Cafe, the best coffee.
All right, listen, guys, it's time to put on your seatbelt because we about to hit third gear.
Wow.
All right. So again, we are in Red Flags Part 5. And for a sub thought today, you'll remember this if you were here 2 weeks ago. For a sub thought to Red Flags Part 5, what do you bring? What do you bring? So I have 3 other questions to go under that. Before we get to that, Pastor Lee, you asked me what I thought was a very thought-provoking question early on in our pre-meeting. Do you mind asking that question again, please?
The question goes something like this.
Why you said his tone like you about to preach? I love it.
You got your keyboard ready?
I mean, good meat make its own gravy. Go ahead.
It's in my DNA. Believe
Come on,
me,
son.
and I can't help it because I see it as a part of who I am, and I can never be different from who I am.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Amen.
But here's the question. How much involvement does a minister of music or musician see himself involved in sitting under the teacher who develops theological concepts for what he does?
So Jay, I'll give my answer first, but I do want you to, kind of give your thoughts.
Okay.
Okay. For me, and you can blame it on my upbringing, but for me, proper theology has to be the foundation of anything that's ministry, and that includes music. It's got to be. If proper theology is not the foundation, then it's not ministry.
Right.
And if it's not ministry, it's a hindrance to the church. So where I stand on that is that has to be the foundation of anything that I am looking to develop within a music department. Anything I'm looking to implement, it has to have proper theological foundation. It absolutely has to have, even the song choices that we use. Obviously, proper theological foundation, as well as understanding that you are a part of the menu for a congregation of people. So you should be putting music on the menu that serves the people. If you have millennials, then you probably don't want to have a menu full of hymns.
Right.
It's not that it can't be a part of the menu, but you fill it up. That doesn't really feed them.
Right.
On the inverse, if you got a mixture, then your menu has to be mixed. But yeah, that's my answer. To me, proper theology, has to be the foundation of anything we do that we consider to be ministry.
All right, so if I could just stick a pin
Yes, sir.
in this for a minute. So in the musician world, we've all been in this position. And I agree, proper theology. How, though, are you getting proper theology playing for 3 or 4 different ministries, or 3 or 4 different teachings? You see what I'm saying? I've been there.
Yeah.
And this is just me.
Yeah.
As a rule, anywhere Jay Mars, I have to say it like that, is employed. If I'm playing for different ministries, I don't take communion at any of them.
Okay.
I got you.
I'm there
Mhm.
to do a job.
Mm.
Now, here's how you know if I'm there to do a job. If I've played for your ministry over a year and you've never called me up for prayer, you've never called me to see how me and my family are doing,
Mhm.
but yet you're preaching on love,
Mhm.
you're preaching on cohesion,
Yeah.
you're preaching on strength of and joy of the Lord. You're preaching on all these things that I'm not experiencing from you. Why would I get anything other than a check from your ministry? And same thing when I go to this other ministry that I'm leaving your church for and going here. They're not asking me either.
Mhm. Pels, I'm coming your way.
Okay.
So now
Love it, Jay.
we become almost like nomads,
Mhm.
going from place to place
Yeah.
with no home.
Yeah.
Nobody to look up to, nobody to call, say, this is my spiritual father.
Mhm.
Because there's never been anything spiritual between you and I,
Yeah.
as I'm supposed to be covering you as your minstrel.
Mm.
But there's nothing that I can cover because you can't even communicate
Yeah. So
beyond the check. I'm sorry.
So what you bring up is very interesting. And Pels, I'm coming your way. I would like to try to continue down that train of thought, but just maybe section it off to a key person in a music ministry capacity
Mm-hmm.
versus just many people who serve in a music capacity,
Of course.
because I think the nuances can change
Yes.
when you are taught when we talk about it through the lens of, like, you know, a key person in the music ministry, such as the lead musician, minister of music, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
versus maybe just the musician. Not that just the musician is not important, but I think the connection has some nuances there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to continue your thought in the section of, let's say, a leader in the music ministry. Pels.
I'll just insert this and y'all just cut me off. And Pop, if you hear something, just grab it and interrupt me. I'm gonna go off of something I learned from Mondale, Pop, you know, my upbringing at SBC and all. There has to be a place of mentorship and a grab of wisdom, right? If you don't have a wisdom element, being that gifted, talented, whichever way you want to interchange that, there's going to be a problem. So Jay, I agree with you. I would play for churches, right, that I'm literally tapped out of the sermon, right? And then my conscience won't let me keep getting the check if I know it's a little toxic, that all y'all want to do is shout. And this brother or sister is not dropping anything that's helping the soul out.
Right.
It's just satisfying a shout in the flesh. Or likewise, this brother or sister so deep, they talking about demons and angels and prophetic word, and they not just giving what must I do to be saved. I mean, at that point, like you said, Jay, it's a job. I thought again about me with photography. I don't charge my wife to take pictures.
Yeah.
Right? I take pictures because I gain by serving her beautiful self. And then other women say, hey, can you do my pictures? What's your charge?
Yeah.
So in other words, my best pictures are with my wife that I don't get paid to take the pictures, but I get work from that.
Yeah.
When I play for people, just jumping on because nobody's there, there's a serve that happens there that as a consequence of the servant, it gets me my business rolling. It's one of those things where if you start playing for a bunch of churches, now there's the thing of are you playing for a bunch of churches because you're trying to make a certain monthly nut? And if you're trying to do that, a 9-to-5 would better serve you so that you can concentrate more in ministry and growth without the constraints of the demands to do this. And then the fluctuation of, if you're not invested in something, then that building is going to drop. They're always going to look for somebody better than you, because we can always undercut you with the pay. So again, I could know Darian's great, but I could be like, look, he's a great guy, but he costs too much money every Sunday. And this kid, he went to YouTube and can do everything that our church is demanding. We're not even utilizing his services for what he needs to be paid for, what he's worthy of is higher. This involves having to invest in where you are because you are a leader. The Levite word is thrown around so much, and the element of leadership is left out of it to say, if you have leadership in you, you ain't just sitting on an instrument like, yo, where's my check? You looking like, okay, Reverend, you missing a couple of things and we can get this to there. So you're at the table. You are there. You don't have time to run out. You got to hang around. And after service, you got to, like a team, you got to go into the locker room. You can't leave off the field after the fourth quarter. You got to sit and you got to decompress because you're involved in it. And then we're clear on playing for people that's just like, so we just gonna occupy this building for an hour. We gonna shout everybody and this, that, and the third. I ain't hating on nobody that go get that check. But you cannot overload yourself with all of this theology, ideologies, and whatever fugaziologies and stuff, and then you all jacked up in your spirit, and you like the woman with all these 7 demons. And then I'm gonna address something that my little brother Aaron said, and I agree with you. Then you have this untapped into listening, sit down at the table and talk about it, where there's a bunch of my hurt young musicians running around calling church hurt. Calling church hurt. Nobody cared about me. It's like, no, nobody told you the truth. Because all your homies that was saying, go get that check, they didn't tell you, you need to let that check go and trust God, because it's going to hype you up. You're going to get the new car, the new car note off of that, and you don't see that pastor is full of whatever, and it's going to stop. And then you're going to look at the places that you denied. And when they tell you, no, we don't need you, you're going to say they hating on you. That's not what it is. Because if you really have a church home, you can go anywhere. Anywhere. And if something goes wrong, you can come back to a home. And there's people in that place that got businesses, they got jobs set up for you, and it's not a Hammond B3.
That's good.
So,
Good.
Pastor Lee, I'm coming to you. I want to say 2 very quick things, kind of in conjunction with where Jay went. There's 2 sides here, Jay. The first side is the musician, us, that is playing at that many churches. It is clear that they are trying to make their living playing or getting financial, payment from churches.
Right.
Now, you remember way back I talked about financial literacy and the absence of that. So what many of us do is that's the first direction that we go in. Once we've gained a specific skill level when it comes to playing in church. We're not, our mind says, okay, well, since this is my skill level, the only way to maximize that is play it at enough churches to get that figure.
Right.
That's the first thing. And that also not only speaks to a lack of financial literacy, but it also speaks to the absence of mentorship.
Right.
So now this is where I take some blame in terms of I feel like I can do more for the next generation. I feel like there's more conversation I can have. Watch this. Even when they seem like they're not listening.
Wow.
Even when they seem like they're not listening, I can still do more.
Yeah.
So that they don't make the same mistakes. But now here's the other side of the coin. The other side of that coin, in my opinion, is what I believe we experience with church as musicians is, again, because of the demand. And because of, remember we talked about churches trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
So because you have all that in play, the pull and the demand.
Right.
So because we've experienced that, that has, I believe, warped our understanding of really planning our careers. I think it's warped our understanding of planning our careers, because we put way too much focus, and I'm talking about musical focus. We put way too much musical focus on what we do in church.
I agree.
Again, as if music cannot have it can't have a financial impact anywhere else, on any other platform that's not the church.
Right.
So many of us that come up in church, we rarely take the time to really investigate and research. The only investigating research we're doing is which church is paying the bigger bag.
That.
Pastor Lee, any responsive thoughts?
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to reference something, Jay, you had mentioned some time ago in one of the podcasts about you don't have a job or a ministry that you're carrying out. You just have a hustle. When you are diversely spreading yourself in that respect. And that's not just capsulizing or painting with a broad brush musicians. Preachers do the same thing.
Come on.
I got to go preach at all of these different places. And by the end of that Sunday, I preach at 8:30 over here. I preach at 11 over there. I preach at 2 over here, and I preach at 6 over there. By the end of the day, I got about $1,500. And so now I can feed my family. I can pay the bills. I can do all of those other things. And so therefore, and I don't want to use negative terminology, but it really says that you are almost prostituting yourself for the purpose of making gains so that you can say, I got to feed my family.
Wow.
Now the other part of that is recognizing the fact of the mindset of one, the person who's leading the ministry, be it pastor. Also, it has to do with where that musician or minister of music is in terms of how he understands his relationship with God. How do you understand your relationship with God? Are you just looking at the church as a mode of income, or are you looking to the Lord to take care of you? Because he promises to do that. His word is very clear. So again, do I have the substance that enables me to stabilize my thinking enough that I'm going to do what's necessary to invest in where God has called me, so that in the conclusion of the matter, God is keeping his end of the bargain. All right.
Yes, sir.
God is fulfilling what he said he's going to do. Same thing with the preacher that goes from place to place trying to preach. God fulfills his part when we understand how important it is to invest in what we believe is the kingdom. What we know the kingdom to be. Now, let me go. Can I just throw something else?
You can take all the rest of it. Go.
But the other thing is recognizing the fact that so often the mistreatment of musicians come out of a lack of understanding of God's structure. When we understand all the way back in the Old Testament, when we talk about worship, that was unto the Lord, and the assignments that God gave to the Levitical priesthood. Understand the Levites were responsible for that whole context.
Yes.
The sons of Levi,
Yes.
they were responsible. There were those who were responsible for music. There were those that were responsible for the building. There were those who were responsible for the holy things. And they had to function there. Those who took care of the music, they were vested in that.
Yes, sir.
That's why David could say, put this to music.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Wow.
Yes, sir.
and so when we by the way, I just want to throw this in parenthetically, just in case somebody might want to take. I love to tell the story, that hymn of Unseen Things Above, of Jesus and His glory, of Jesus and His love. I love to tell the story, for to me, it is true. It
Yeah.
satisfies my longing as nothing else can do.
Yeah.
Put that to some other music and then make it relevant for
Yeah.
today, if you will.
Yeah.
I love to tell the story.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, but here is the powerful transition that must take place in the life of the church. Pastor and leaders have to reevaluate, again, as I said earlier, what are we doing? What is the most important thing in all of what we are attempting to do?
Yeah.
And until we arrive at that conclusion, we'll forever be debating these kinds of thoughts, concepts, and ideas. We'll always be struggling with, well, this is what they've been doing, so here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
They treated me this way over there, and here's I'm going to treat this. It's kind of like I'm going to punish the previous musician, this musician, because of what the previous one
musician.
did. I'm going to punish
This pastor.
this pastor for what the previous pastor
Yes,
did.
sir.
Wow.
And so we tit for tat all of these years, and Jesus is standing back and saying, but that's not what I taught you.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then let me just throw this in and I'm finished. And that is,
You don't have to be finished.
the reality is, we've got to ask ourselves, well, what did he teach me? Was I in position to be taught?
Yeah.
Did I gain insight on how to live in this new world order
Wow.
with the same belief system that brought others to the reality of the kingdom?
Yes, sir. Let me shout out some more watchers, and then
Right
Jay.
before you
go
do
ahead.
that, I'm gonna give it to you. This is why you have wisdom at the table. Okay, you have wisdom at the table for reasons of this, because what he just dropped on us is showing us the demand for entertainment, but not the demand for enlightenment.
Yes,
Gary,
sir.
go for it, man.
Yes, sir.
Hold on, D, real quick.
Go ahead, Jay.
So I have.
It was juicy,
I have
right?
To, yeah,
It was
no,
juicy,
man.
it
Like
was
I have to
juicy.
say this.
Go ahead.
So I can only speak for me.
Yeah.
I remember back in my 20s, I was one of the ones that was going from church to church. I think I was playing for about 4 to 5 churches at one time. And I had to realize that as I was doing that, like anything else that you spread yourself too thin,
Yeah.
I realized that I was contracting an STD,
You catch a cold.
Come on.
a spiritually transmitted disease.
Somebody put that in the chat, please.
Jay.
Because I was going from here to there.
Jay.
But
Come
this
on,
is what I
Jay.
was saying when I was like, you're going from church to church, but you're not receiving any kind of
Yeah.
anything because it was about the check.
Yeah.
So I was receiving, I was contracting a spiritual STD. And you know what that STD was? I became numb to anything that was going on in church where I missed moments. It wasn't, when I say missed moments that God was trying to speak to me, I missed them because my mind wasn't there, because I'm still on the last service trying now to process what I just got out of
Yeah.
and going into something completely different
Yeah.
and trying now to get into this type of service
Mhm.
and preparing myself for another service that I got to get in that has nothing to do with the service I'm in.
And let's keep this in its proper context, because I don't want somebody to get the impression that we're just, that we are in a vacuum, including, for instance, your main Sunday morning, and then, you maybe play an occasional afternoon or evening service.
Right.
We're not vacuuming that in. No,
Right. And we're not bashing.
We're talking about, multiple services at multiple different churches every week.
And that was me.
That's the
That was me.
context. Now, let me say this, and we will try to move on if we can. One, we don't have the right conversations up front.
Right. That's
What do I mean? What I mean is this. To those who, for whatever reason, you have your reasons, but if you are playing at a church and you are looking to add another church that starts at a different time, has a different schedule, for whatever reason, okay, are you willing to have the conversation with the pastor you are serving? Because if you're not, then doesn't that speak to your lack of investment in that ministry?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
It does. Yes.
If we can't sit down and have a real conversation, particularly as adults.
Yep.
And then the other part is, and again, this is going to sting.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The other part is, many of us have experience with churches, and I spoke to this this was a couple episodes ago, but many of us in the music circle, we have experience from churches, limited access.
Wow. Yeah, that's right.
That's what you started speaking on in terms of you don't even call me.
No,
Yeah.
you don't call it.
Yeah.
So now I have limited access, but there's an expectation for me to invest myself in limited access. I brought those two things up to say that, at least from my experience, I think that, along with what I talked about in terms of trying to make a living out of, church envelopes,
Right.
that leads us down this path of the musician playing at multiple different churches, getting multiple different, theological
Theologies,
teachings
yeah.
and theological nuances and doctrinal practices
And spirits.
and STDs.
Right.
Feed you spiritually.
Yes.
And because that's the thing. You're like Pop said, you're getting no nourishment
Yes.
anywhere.
So we got 10 minutes. Let me shout out some watchers. Mrs. Angel Morris,
Hey, babe.
Deetra Samuels, Patsy Keller Wormley. Who else do we have here? Overseer L. Andre Person, Pauline Schaub, Alonzo Terry Ginyard. Let's see, who else did I miss? Ramona Sharp, Dottie Moore, Tawana Simons, Lisa Smith, Greg Brown, Charles Carter. I believe that's Chenoa Taylor. I apologize if I messed that up. Chenoa, okay. Priscilla E. Custis, Cheryl Spinner Vaughn, John Howard Jr., thank you all again for tuning in. Nick Hill, thank you for tuning in. Sharon Ferguson, thanks again for tuning in. So, under the what do you bring? We're going to try to do this the best we can in the next 10 to 12 minutes. All right? So, I got 3 sub questions under what do you bring? Now, when I say what do you bring, to add something to that question would be, okay, when I say what do you bring, what substance comes with you as a musical professional and music minister that either that particular church may not have or may not have enough of? So what do you bring? Now, some sub questions there. Do you bring direction? Do you bring direction? Now, let me add something to that. All right. If we can imagine this from the lens of an expedition, generally there's a lot of people that would travel with an expedition. Some people may look at it as a pilgrimage. Okay. But there's a lot of people that travel an expedition,
Right.
and most, if not all of them, they're unable to see the destination.
Right. Right.
But they're traveling more than likely because of the substance of what the leader has given them regarding the destination and the journey.
Yeah.
So even though they can't see the destination, they are still anticipating getting to where they can't see because of who's leading them.
That's good.
So do you bring direction or do you bring drama?
Wow.
Or are you the type that, you cussing folk out because they don't do what you say?
Ain't that the old director's pals? They cuss you out.
If you say I said it, I'll call you a liar.
Hey, look, quick insert for pastors out there, be very careful. And there's a pastor that's out there maybe watching, knows exactly specifically what I'm talking about. A senior pastor that I look up to, Wisdom. I had gotten a musician and I told them, because under desperation, I hired somebody. And because of where they were, that pastor didn't hate on them, just said, that person will destroy your ministry. It took about 6 years and they almost destroyed the ministry.
Wow.
Now, I'm going to tell you something about this person. I love him. We're good. I pray for him. We got over that. But here's the problem. Was very skilled, very great. Sat in at the table. I'm not calling that person a Judas, but if you think about Judas, right? You had the 12, but Judas was at the table, right?
Lord.
The enemy, the one that destroyed the whole thing, tried to destroy the whole thing, was at the table, eating, drinking, fishing, the whole nine, going out ye therefore in my name, cast out demons and all, was in the crew. So how is it that when we avoid getting into Bible study, we avoid getting into the meeting, avoid finding out what the vision is and just getting a check and rolling out, those are these lukewarm people. Y'all remember the whole Big Mac joint. It was the cold side, the BLT one, the cold side and hot one. Rashad Grove, shout out to you. They kept it separate, right? That whole lukewarm thing, you got to pick a side, right? Either it's all about the check, so I don't need to know nothing, and then I can't complain about it later, or I'm all in. But then as leaders, we got to watch the all in people that don't have the right heart, because the Bible teaches us about the Judases so that we can detect the Judases ahead of time, so that we can pray about them. And so that whole bring direction, the next thing is, what is your life outside of when I see you here? Because that's going to tell me a lot about your leadership in here. Because as Darian said, direction, if you can't lead no people in the forest, how you going to lead people in the pew?
There you go.
If you can't lead them from City Hall to King of Prussia, how can you lead the choir in the direction of worship? I'm sorry. What is the skill set that's beyond the sanctuary?
Yes, sir.
Because that is the totality of your life. This is why we don't know Jesus as the keynote speaker in synagogues.
Yeah.
We know the Jesus that sits down with sinners and tax collectors, that they accuse him of being a wine bibbler, which means he must have been around a drinking party, because he was at a wedding. Y'all know the story.
Yeah.
He's the one that's out on the ship. He's the one that's in the upper room. This is the Jesus that's around in the streets where a woman comes up to him. So the musician, right? What is your life beyond the same? You can't hide it and demand the leadership and the respect in the place of people that don't have any kind of identity on what's your normal daily life structure.
Yes, sir. Let me add some more to drama, because again, we can't leave out these things that are common.
Mm-hmm.
So when I said, do you bring direction or drama?
I got it ready.
Is your family members and or significant other unnecessarily starting fights because they don't like how they feel you're treated?
Right, they feel. Right there. Right there. We can end right there.
Do you bring direction or do you bring drama? Let me go to the second one, and then I want to get you guys' thoughts on either one of them. Second one, do you bring stability and cohesion? Do you bring stability and cohesion? Cohesion points to consistency. Stability points to consistency. Meaning, okay, what you are looking to implement, build, and develop, is that something you stay consistent with? Or does that seem to change like undergarments? And then cohesion. I think it's important not to confuse cohesion with glue. What do I mean? Glue is for one or two particular pieces that have fallen off of the main mold. Cohesion has to be in everybody's DNA.
Wow.
It has to be a part of the whole mold.
That's good. That's good.
Do you bring stability and cohesion, or are you a mystery?
Wow.
Are we looking at the door 10 minutes before service?
Wow.
Pastor, any thoughts?
I have a whole lot of thoughts. The reality is, however you come, you're going to bring with you whatever it is you got.
Right.
I mean,
Right there.
and see, even if you are raising the question of what do I bring, and I was thinking about that while you were talking, how that sometimes we don't always show our hand. And the truth is, oftentimes we have selected people to participate in ministry that show us a smile, which the OJ says just a frown turned upside down. Okay. And then the other part of that is the confusion that comes with you. If we can never get in, my grandfather used to say to me, if that rascal can't look you in your eyes, you better be careful. And I often say, come on, Dad, you know, that's, you can't judge people based on that. But the truth is,
My Lord.
the truth is, I learned through the years, a person that, and what he was saying, a person that can't look you in the eye and speak truth, you beware, because underneath what they just said is a current that's going to sweep away the foundation of where you stand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow.
So the undercurrent in ministry oftentimes comes because individuals are coming with a label without a life.
Yeah.
It is.
I'm gonna give you credit for that.
I think we
I'm gonna give you credit for that. That's my third point for Sunday.
Yeah, man. Wow, brother.
So are you bringing a life that's worth preserving, a life that makes a difference with other lives, a life that literally contributes to the value of who others are?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So out of all of the things we're asking what you're bringing, the one key thing is asking, are you bringing your life? Because if you bring your life, the story will be told. And I'll leave it at that.
Jay?
You expect me to follow? Pop?
Yes, sir.
You should have asked me first. All right?
My bad.
We just want to host this.
Yeah, I'm like, hold up.
We want to host for it. You know, save up.
Nah, man. I agree with everything Pop said. Like, I really have nothing to really add to that.
Okay.
To be honest, man. Like he really shut the whole thing down with truth and wisdom.
Absolutely.
And when there's nothing to be added, man, like literally you just like, I agree.
All right. So
Your wife
listen.
said it.
Yeah.
So listen. I'm gonna add one more thing. We don't have time to talk about it, but I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah.
He got to come back.
The last one.
He just got to come back.
So we did. Do you bring direction
Mhm.
or drama? Second one. Do you bring stability and cohesion, or do you bring mystery and enigma?
Wow.
And then number 3. Do you bring structure? Structure. What do I mean? Reasonable and relevant methods of operation. Reasonable and relevant methods of operation. Now, the key word here is relevant. Reason why the key word is relevant is understanding, embracing, and accepting that what may have worked in one era may not work today. I make this analogy in my business a lot. I say, I'm old enough to remember when you had to walk up to the TV to change the channel.
Yep.
Nowadays, you can't change the channel from the TV.
Exactly.
You have to have a remote.
Remote.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
That's the truth.
Wow.
Reasonable.
Times have changed.
That's an illustration. A remote.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Remote ministry.
Walk on it. Walk on
Don't
it.
do it. Don't do it.
Let me.
Go.
So-
You feel it. Go ahead. Let him use it. Let him use
He ain't trying to give it all away
it.
today.
Let him use
No.
it.
Let me stop. Go on. Keep
Yeah.
going.
So we ending on this. Do you bring structure, or do you bring a skirt chase?
Wow.
Let him have his closing remarks.
Go ahead, Pop. You need to close the rest.
since he went there, the real question that so often needs to come out of that is that if I'm growing fruit in the garden or fruit in the field, the question is, do I have raiders in the field that comes as a result of what I've planted? God has planted so much, and you got to remember when Jesus used the parable to point out the fact that he had sowed seeds in the field. When he sowed the seeds, it was supposed to bring forth fruit, but they noticed that there was tares among the wheat.
Mm-hmm.
And so the disciples wanted to go out and pull up the tares. And Jesus said, no, don't do that, lest you pull up some of the wheat with it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the other question was, well, who did it? Jesus said, an enemy has done this thing. We have to remember that whenever we are moving in the kingdom's direction, there's going to always be an enemy trying to sow tares, trying to sow other fruit, or should I say that which looks like fruit.
Yeah.
That's really not. It just resembles it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it will almost taste like it until you swallow it.
Wow. Yeah, brother.
And then your stomach is messed up.
Yeah.
Taste is all right.
Yeah.
But once it gets inside
Once you get in your
and
system.
the digestion begins to take place, it messes you up.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I pray that in all that we are seeing in this, that we will come to terms with the fact, whatever that person brings, if I'm going to go back to the word life, if they bring their life, you will see the direction. If they bring stability and cohesion, you'll see it in their life. If they bring all of those areas we talked about, you will see it in their life. They won't be just this is an old person from the South statement. They won't be just cherry pickers.
Lord.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
That's something deep.
yeah.
That's something deep.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
I
Yes.
taste the gravy with that.
all right.
Yes, sir.
So the cherry picker is one that only picks the ripe cherries and leave the work for everybody else.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Wow.
Take us away, Pels.
Oh no. He got closing remarks.
Yeah.
So Pop, you gonna look right in that camera over here,
Yeah.
and you give your closing remarks and thank the people for watching, because everybody's watching because of you today.
Oh Lord. Well, let me say thank you. I appreciate their hospitality
Absolutely.
and their willingness to say to me, I'm meaningful to what they're doing in this podcast. I enjoy them every time they produce, even if I catch it on the backside and watch it after hours. But what I've learned is there is value in between Sundays. And it's so important to reevaluate how you do what you do and the reason why you do it. Thank you for listening today. We love you. We praise God for you. And we look forward to next time.
Thank you, Pastor. That's
all.
it.
Thank
That's
you,
all for
Pastor,
today.
coming
Oh,
in.
that's all for
That's
today?
it. That's it.
All right, we're leaving out of
We
here on
out.
the song. See y'all between
If I was
Sundays.
good like some of these other folk out here who can really sing, I would cut a single and it would go a little something like this. Baptist bounce, bass. I'm going home on the morning train. Oh, I'm going home on the morning train. The evening train just made